everyone. Welcome to Crossroads Children's Mental Health Center's three-part webinar series focused on children's mental health and COVID-19. My name is Julie Giacchino. I'm a registered psychotherapist and program manager at Crossroads. Myself and my coworker, Isabel McNider, registered social worker and supervisor at Crossroads, will walk you through this three-part webinar series. In times of stress and uncertainty, it's normal for people that are otherwise healthy to experience impacts on their mental health and well-being. At Crossroads, we strongly believe that addressing mental health needs must be a central part of the response to this pandemic. The pandemic is slow-moving, and currently it's not clear when it will end, making it even more challenging for families. Mental health needs to be part of the conversation now more than ever. Crossroads Children's Mental Health Center works exclusively with children under the age of 12 and their loved ones. We're committed to developing and delivering a wide range of mental health services to help children and families struggling with severe emotional, behavioral, and social issues. Our services are individualized. Families are included as full participants, and there is no cost to access our programs. Here's a list of some of the services that we offer. The one I want to highlight right now is our walk-in clinic. We offer a free weekly walk-in clinic on Wednesdays and Thursdays to families that have children under the age of 12. All of the information on our programs and how to access our walk-in can be found on our website at www.crossroadschildren.ca. And I'll also provide more information on how you can reach us at the end of today's presentation. As we head back to school, we find ourselves in uncharted territory. There's a lot of pressure on families right now, and it can feel like every day new information or new guidance is provided. So much unknown is certainly anxiety-producing for everyone. Experts and service providers are already starting to see increasing demand for mental health services as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So in response to the anticipated surge of mental health needs for children and families, and in preparation for Back to School 2020, Crossroads Children's Mental Health Center has created this three-part webinar series. This week, we'll be exploring the potential impacts of COVID-19 on mental health and setting the stage for success. Next week, we will look at understanding the stress response system, and we'll talk about how to calm a stressed child. And finally, in our last week, we'll talk about mental health, mental illness, and when to get help for your child. Week 1, exploring the potential impacts of COVID-19 on mental health and setting the stage for success. Here's an overview of today's webinar. We'll start with a calming activity to get ourselves ready to learn. Then we'll focus on COVID-19 and childhood mental health, followed by COVID-19 and caregivers, and lastly, we'll talk about some strategies for home. As we move through this webinar series, we hope you will see how important it is for you as the caregiver to feel well and calm in order to be there for your child. One way to help with that is through mindfulness. Before you roll your eyes or close your computer screen, I promise this will be quick, painless, and most of all, we think very helpful.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. So I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribes for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
So with that in mind, let's start off with a 45-second breathing exercise. Activities like this one that calm us and allow us to be present in the moment are especially important now when concerns about COVID-19 and what the future holds feel so pressing. This mindfulness activity will help you to focus on the present and sets the stage for learning. Taking the time, in this case only 45 seconds, to calm a racing mind helps to set you up for success as a learner in this situation and as a caregiver at home. Simply follow the prompts on the screen. What is childhood mental health and what does it look like? Good mental health allows us to learn, work, play, and find enjoyment in life. From a child's point of view, mental health means I feel like I have things to live for. I feel that people care about me. I feel hopeful and good about the future. I like myself. Just as with physical health, very rarely does someone go through life without some mental health problems. Typically, those problems are a normal part of life, and for the most part, we learn and we grow from them. It's important to understand that good mental health does not mean never getting stressed or never getting upset or never facing adversity. In fact, not all stress is bad. Every day we go through experiences that activate our stress response. For adults, that's things like traffic or parenting or arguing with a partner or coworker. For children, that can be taking a test, moving to a new school, or the birth of the sibling. All of these have elements that activate our stress response, and this type of generally predictable and moderate activation of our stress response system is essential for us and for our children to develop resiliency. It's actually a good thing. While we may not be able to predict the precise impact of this pandemic yet on the mental health of children, experts are telling us that there will be adverse effects. Emerging evidence, along with knowledge about previous disease outbreaks, highlights several sources of distress that children may have experienced directly or indirectly. Things like a loss of predictability and structure, loneliness due to loss of connection to close relationship, increased stress in the home, possibly some domestic violence, financial insecurity, stress resulting from exposure to intensified media coverage, to name a few. According to Alex Munter, President and CEO of CHEO, if seniors have been the ones most infected by COVID-19, children have been the ones most affected by the COVID-19 measures. Children's Mental Health Ontario and Addictions and Mental Health Ontario polled a sample of approximately 1,000 Ontario residents at the end of April 2020. I'll share just a few highlights from the poll. Since the start of the pandemic, 30% of caregivers indicated their child was much more often, or somewhat more often, stressed to the point where it had an impact on how they lived their daily life. 24% of caregivers indicated their child was much more often, or somewhat more often, stressed to the point where they felt like they could not cope or deal with things. And 59% of parents indicated that they had noticed some behavioral changes in their child since the start of the pandemic. Things like sleeping difficulty, altered sleeping patterns, changes in eating habits, outbursts or extreme irritability, difficulty concentrating, and drastic changes in mood, behavior, or personality. The Ontario Centre of Excellence for Child and Youth Mental Health and Children's Mental Health Ontario partnered to create a document titled Potential Impacts of COVID-19 on Child and Youth Mental Health. And in it, they share what some of the emerging research is starting to tell us about the impact of COVID-19 on our children. One example is a group that surveyed 1,143 parents of children aged 3 to 18 in Spain and Italy about the effects of quarantine on their children and themselves. Parents reported increased family tensions during quarantine and higher levels of stress and emotional problems in their children. Just over 85% of parents reported changes in their children's behavior and emotional state as a result of quarantine, including difficulty concentrating, irritability, nervousness, and feelings of loneliness. This same document also highlights what we know from previous pandemics, and that is that children are more vulnerable. Children have a limited understanding of dangers and how to remain safe, and they don't often know when or how to access help, which can make them vulnerable to increased stress, fear, anxiety, and academic challenges. For example, messaging around physical distancing can be very confusing for young children. People who were once safe now need to be kept at a distance. Because of their limited capacity to understand the crisis and their developing emotion regulation and coping skills, toddlers, preschoolers, and in some cases even school-age children are at risk of experiencing heightened levels of distress, fear, and anxiety. Infants are even more vulnerable as they are completely dependent on their caregivers. The infant's world is defined by their caregiver. If caregivers are stressed, preoccupied, depressed, or anxious, this will adversely impact the infant and the toddler. We often hear kids are resilient, or they were too young when it happened to even remember, or they'll get over it. It is the ultimate irony that when the human is most vulnerable to the effects of trauma, during infancy and early childhood, adults generally presume the most resilience. When children are young, their brains are little sponges, and they absorb and learn from their environment, from their interactions, from their experiences, both good and bad. But it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot caregivers like you can do. One of the most important protective factors is the availability of a healthy and responsive caregiver. Your caring and responsive presence can diminish dramatically the activation of your child's stress response system and we'll come back to this shortly. This is just a very small sample of the many hilarious memes to come out during this pandemic. Did you know that a good chuckle relieves physical tension and stress, leaving you feeling more relaxed for up to 45 minutes? Laughing actually lowers our blood pressure, it reduces our stress hormones, it increases the circulation of antibodies in the bloodstream, and even makes us more resistant to infection. So laughter really is the best medicine. Although we did want to insert a little levity in the presentation and highlight the benefits of laughing, we're certainly not making light of the current situation we find ourselves in. Throughout these 3 webinars, we'll give you some strategies you can use at home to set yourself up and your child for success. As a caregiver, you've also been through a very stressful time. You likely had to manage a lot of the various stressors on this slide, and others not even captured. It's important to acknowledge that feeling stressed or anxious is a normal reaction to what's going on right now. But stress adds up, and our resilience can be run down over time. Your sensitivity and your patience are absolutely critical ingredients for helping your children thrive. So taking care of yourself is more important now than ever, because our capacity as parents to support our children is limited by our own physical and mental well-being. The impacts of COVID-19 have certainly not been equally distributed. As some of you are undoubtedly aware, communities of color are disproportionately taking the brunt of this pandemic. The pain and grief that students of color are carrying as we move through these months, particularly Black students, is further magnified by the ongoing injustices that are fueling crucial movements for anti-racism and systemic change. Indigenous communities may also be at heightened risk as a result of marginalization, but also given historical exposure to pandemics and associated intergenerational trauma. For example, indigenous cultures that include sweat lodges, pipe ceremonies, sun dances, or powwows have been asked to suspend those activities to protect their elders and their communities. It is a necessary precaution, but for many, it can be a painful reminder of when cultural activities were outlawed. As we approach fall and the transition back to school, it's important for all of us to understand that the impact of COVID-19 will vary greatly from child to child. There's one community agency that has been hearing directly from families like yours about the impact of COVID-19 that we would like to highlight, and that's Parents Lifelines of Eastern Ontario. They provide free, confidential support from other parents with lived experience raising children with mental health concerns. They get it because they've been there. Here's a bit more about them.
My name is Christy, and I'm here to share about a resource for families called Pleo. Pleo is a family peer support organization that helps parents with children facing mental health challenges find their way forward. Everyone that works at Pleo has lived experience supporting their own children with mental health and behavioral challenges. We've been there, we get it, we can help. Right now, everywhere we go, we're speaking with parents and we're hearing about the added challenges that the pandemic is having on their own mental health, on their children's mental health, on their family functioning, and the extra stress of the coming fall. We're hearing questions like what is normal, how to cope, where do I go for next steps, and how can I, the parent, be supported? All of our support is virtual right now, and support for you is just a phone call away. Here's a video about our services.
Parents Lifeline of Eastern Ontario, Laura Lee speaking.
Our vision is for families facing mental health challenges to flourish. We believe that it's possible, and we know that our work makes a meaningful difference. Often parents, in addition to the demands of life, including work and other children, are tasked with a full-time job as case manager, researcher, advocate, and supporter for their struggling child. Their child's well-being rests on their capacity to keep their head above water amidst these tremendous stressors, to find the best resources and services, to become an expert in their child's particular challenges, to navigate the mental health and addiction system, and really manage this global breakdown that is so common for those facing mental health challenges. When we work with parents, these are the kinds of things we help them through. All of the pieces of the puzzle that will foster the best possible outcomes for their child and family, themselves included.
We are parents who have supported our own children with these challenges. We have traveled the journey. When a parent calls our helpline, joins one of our support groups, or meets with our mobile one-on-one support, there's no judgment, no blame. We get it because we've been there, and we do this work as if it was for our own child. The parents we support have children to age 25 and live throughout Eastern Ontario. Their child may be struggling with depression, anxiety, addiction, schizophrenia, ADHD, or an eating disorder. Some of the parents who call are just starting to have concerns about their child's behavior or well-being. Others already have a diagnosis or have been in and out of services for years. We meet them wherever they are in their journey, and we help them find their way forward.
We know that good family support leads to better outcomes and that parents can't do it alone. They need support and they need to be empowered as critical and valuable members of their child's team. And we also know that our work at Pleo has a positive impact. Parents we support report being better able to access the right services, better able to support their child, better able to cope, and that they feel less alone, isolated, and stressed.
If you are a parent of a child to age 25 facing any mental health challenge, just call us, 613-321-3211 in Ottawa, or toll-free 855-775-7005. You can also join any of our support groups across the region. Call us or check out our website for the one closest to you. All of our services are completely confidential. You don't need a referral, you don't need to register to attend, and are available at no charge thanks to the support of our funders. We're here for you. We're here for you.
Hi everyone, my name is Isabel. I'm a supervisor at Crossroads and I'll be covering the rest of the slides for today. You can't be there for your child if you're not there for yourself first. You have to put on your own oxygen mask before you can help others. How well you are, the state of your own mental health, is critical to being able to support your child. Make time for yourself. So much of the personal time that was part of our daily routines, like commutes, time alone at home or at the store, social time with friends, is not available or not as available, especially for those with kids at home. Without it, we have to be intentional about creating a space to recharge and decompress. This could look like taking a shower or a bath, walking around a block alone, or with your dog or someone in your bubble, or designating time to read or simply zone out after the kids have gone to bed. Prioritize healthy choices. The added stress and lack of structure we're all experiencing right now can make it easy to slip into habits that feel good in the moment but can be detrimental in the long term. This doesn't mean pressuring yourself to get in tip-top shape or not eating ice cream or binging your favorite Netflix show. It does mean being thoughtful and intentional about how you're treating yourself and your body. Look at what nourishes you physically, mentally, and what drains you. For instance, poutine may not be something that some consider a healthy food option. However, if you're enjoying your meal with a friend or over Skype and it recharges you, then it can be part of your self-care. Be realistic. Perfectionism and the coronavirus don't mix. It's time to be exceedingly realistic, both at work and as a parent. Take the foot off the gas pedal. Lower your expectations for performance around home, school, or work. Set realistic expectations and give yourself grace if you can't meet them. There's no playbook for this. Remember, you're doing your best during a very difficult time. People don't realize how exhausting it can be to have your stress response activated in a nonstop way. Cut yourself some slack. This is the time to practice setting boundaries. Anxiety is rampant right now. With so much worry and uncertainty floating around, it can be easy to absorb other people's fears and concerns without even realizing it. If you have a friend or family member who's in the habit of sending worst-case scenario news or is prone to sending anxiety-provoking text messages, practice a little emotional distancing. Let them know you sympathize, but that you're taking a break from worrying news, or simply hit the Do Not Disturb button. You can always reconnect with them when things are calmer. Self-care for parents is often not adding something in, but taking something away that doesn't fill your cup. For instance, that social event that you feel like you have to go, but you're secretly dreading. Sometimes it's a time to practice saying no. Reconnect with things that you enjoy. Get back in touch with hobbies or activities you like. Maybe there's a knitting project you've always wanted to try, or you've been meaning to learn how to needlepoint. When you're running on fumes, caring for others can tax your already depleted resources to a breaking point. But when you prioritize your needs, you're filling the tank emotionally and physically, and that means you'll be able to offer comfort and care to others when they need it the most. When working with parents, I often hear things like, I don't have time for self-care. Self-care is one of those overused words in our society that we often use, but few of us actually practice or know what it means. That's why it can be helpful to think of it in terms of active coping. The more stress you have, the more you have to do whatever helps you balance out that stress. Quite often we do the opposite. We might cancel our coffee chat or skip our run when that can actually have the biggest impact on us being calm and present for our children. It's true, time is limited and precious, especially when trying to navigate working from home. Often with parents, it's not really as simple as adding in some coping activities, but taking out some activities that are draining you and that aren't essential. You might need to prioritize what will have the biggest impact. For example, do you have that one friend that you dread seeing and you're exhausted after having a one-sided conversation for an hour? Did you volunteer for a committee and you actually dread it all week, and when you're there, you don't find it fulfilling at all? That's very different than sitting down with a supportive friend that listens to you, and after seeing them, you feel like you could take on the world, or the walk in the forest that revitalizes you. Pay attention, just notice to what makes things better and what makes things worse. Everyone's solution is different. Maybe you hate running and will only do it if a bear is chasing you. Then don't run. Personally, I can't stand yoga. I abhor every minute of it. I stopped trying to make it happen. One parent I spoke with would clean as part of her self-care. Again, it's not for everyone. For her, creating calm and organization in a small part of her house, like for instance under the kitchen sink, helped her cope with the outer chaos present in her life. As with mindfulness, you can benefit from 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes as a parent, that's all we have. You can sit with your soothing cup of coffee, enjoy the present moment, notice that in this moment everything is okay. In this moment, you're feeling calm and enjoying a warm drink. Small moments have a cumulative effect in your day. Kids are often great at doing this. They can immerse themselves in the wonder of a bug on a leaf. Channel some of that and join them in the wonders for a few minutes. Your task list will still be there when it's over. Co-regulation is defined as a warm and responsive interactions that provide the support, coaching, modeling children need to understand, express, and modulate their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Humans are very social creatures. We are contagious to the emotions of others. If we are upset, frustrated, or dysregulated, we will dysregulate those around us, especially our children. Neuroscience shows us that humans develop their abilities for their own emotional self-regulation through connections with reliable caregivers who soothe and model in a process called co-regulation. The child needs to learn to manage their emotions with someone before they can be expected to do so on their own. Co-regulation is the first step to self-regulation. Your child will need your help to manage their big emotions in the next few months, especially as they're transitioning to school. And a stressed or dysregulated adult can't regulate or calm a child. To be able to co-regulate, adult needs to be regulated themselves, which is why making sure you're taking of yourself first is so critical. So now that we've covered ways that you can manage your own stress, you are well situated to help your children manage their stress. As we've just discussed for parents, every child is unique. What works for one child may not work for another. What works for you may not work for your child. What works on some days may not work on others. That's why it's essential to have a variety of tools to help children manage their stress. It sometimes takes a bit of trial and error to figure out what are the best tools at your disposal. Remember, if you're struggling to manage your own stress, it's best to prioritize your self-care before you can help your child. As adults, we are able to give ourselves a sense of calm and predictability. Over time, most of us have found tools to bring structure to our lives. For children, they often need an external structure to create a sense that their world is safe. Without structure, there's an internal drifting. They're not sure if they're coming or going. We're going to present 2 strategies that you can start right away that we know has a huge impact in promoting a sense of calm and stability in children. Both strategies will help create that much needed external structure. The first strategy is creating a routine. I'm sure this isn't new information, but allow me to break it down a bit for you in terms of what it can look like and why it's important. Here are two possible samples, one that's more detailed and precise and one that's more open and broad. Not all children need a detailed schedule. Many children just need a sense of first this, then this. First an activity, then another activity. It can be divided into blocks of time such as breakfast, morning, lunch, afternoon, etc. Most children prefer to have a visual schedule. This creates a sense of safety and predictability. This isn't meant to be a rigid program. Be flexible and kind with yourself. You can change course as needed, keeping in mind that some children struggle with sudden changes in routine, so you may need to prepare them in advance. For example, remember tomorrow Dad will be picking you up at school instead of me since you have a dentist appointment. What if that's not how your family function? Is this giving you a sense of dread? Think of it as more as a flow to your day rather than a prescribed list. First we wake up, then we have some playtime, then we have breakfast. In this case, you would need some repetition to help anchor this for your child. Bedtime rituals around what's happening tomorrow can help with this. Again, there's no one size fits all. You know your family best. If this is something that's challenging for you, this is something that Crossroads can help with. Staff here can help support you in creating a personalized routine for your child to help promote mental health. So as you're thinking of your daily routine, how can you try to maintain a sense of normalcy? As discussed earlier, in times of stress, we often stop doing the things that help us the most. But how can we go from surviving to thriving? We need to get creative about recreating normalcy. It's also helpful if there are things in the future that your children can look forward to, like a Skype call with a grandparent or a walk in the forest. We've lost a lot of our past routines, but we can create new and meaningful ones. One of our new family routines are drives to nowhere. My husband and daughter get in the car, she brings her snacks and controls the music. My new routine is enjoying a rare opportunity to have the house to myself. Look for new opportunities. Some of us have more time to do things with our family, like crafts or jigsaw puzzles. Find creative ways to maintain social connections. As Bruce Perry says, physically distant, but socially close. If you can add an element of choice or control in your child's choice of activity, such as which movie to watch or which game to play, this helps children maintain a sense of control in their life. It can help to offer two options that you're happy with. Do you want to order pizza or McDonald's? These are little things that can add up throughout the day. Children appreciate rituals. If you're able to weave some into your daily routine, it can help promote a sense of calm and safety. It can be as simple as using the same line when you send them off to school. I love you. I can't wait to hear about your day. Repetition and reassurance is the most calming thing for children. So just a few more aspects to think about when thinking of your child's daily routine. Family meals can be a time to connect and create a ritual. Maybe you want to share a highlight of your day. Again, all families are different. If mealtime is not bonding time for you, that's okay. It's an idea. It might take some trial and error to realize what works for some family. Thinking about social media, less is definitely more. There are a lot of scary messages going around. It's best to control the messaging and limit exposure to some of the stories that we see and that our children see. For adults, there's also this sense of everyone seems to be doing better than I am. Sometimes on social media, we only show the best versions of ourselves. We see tons of families at our walk-in clinic that feel like they're alone and struggling at home. Trust me, you're not alone. This is hard for all of us. Thinking about sleep, good sleep makes everything better. If sleep is less than ideal, it can make stress worse. It's beyond this presentation to explore all aspects of sleep hygiene, but if you're concerned with your child's sleep, please go see your doctor. One quick takeaway, this is a great area for creating rituals, such as a story before tuck-in. And one last note about exercise. Think of it as gentle movement. What feels good for your body or your child's body? This isn't a chore. This shouldn't feel like homework. What does your child enjoy doing? Bonus if you can do this outside. Being in nature has a huge calming properties on our brains. Peppering movement breaks throughout the day is highly beneficial. Might there be some movement opportunities at different parts of the day? Kitchen dance party after lunch, where your child can pick the song? Now that I've got you thinking about your child's day, let's expand a bit around what we know about your child's brain. So some of the quotes we use in the presentation are from Bruce Perry, known child trauma expert. You see on the slide, I've listed his website where he's posted a great free series that you can access that talks about trauma-informed practices for supporting children at home during the pandemic. I highly recommend it. One of the things that I invite you to think about is, how is my child's reward bucket filled throughout the day? You see, I've listed 3 buckets: value-based activities, play, and connection, as they are the main activities that are known to stimulate the brain's reward centers. Other rewarding activities will include things like eating sweet, salty foods and rhythmic and sensory activities. Rewarding activities start right from the womb, when a fetus will suck on a finger to soothe themselves. This is true for kids as well as adults. How many of us have noticed increase in eating carbs and salty foods? This is a perfectly normal physiological response to stress. We all seek out rewarding activities. They help us cope with pain or suffering. We will discuss rhythmic and calming activities in more detail next webinar when we look at the brain's stress response. But for now, when you think of some of these rewarding activities, notice which one your child gravitates towards. So the goal around thinking of your child's reward bucket is not to judge how your child is spending their day. A lot of us have less than ideal solutions to filling our child's schedule. It's about looking at what specifically is filling their bucket throughout the day. Parents will often come to us as they think their child is playing too many video games, often because they've been told by someone else, maybe another professional, that their child's playing too much. First of all, guilt check. No one is letting your children play video games because they think it's amazing for their brains. It's often out of necessity, so there's no shame in doing what you can to get through the day. We know that for a lot of our kids, this hits their reward center full on. Rather than looking at cutting video games, can you look at what you could replace it with instead? If your family values physical activity, can you add an after-dinner walk? Or if you value volunteering, could your child help take care of the family pet? Yes, that does trigger the reward centers too. The most powerful reward that we know is human connection. And that doesn't just mean parents or caregivers. We know that you're stretched thin. It could be a friend, a camp counselor, respite workers, teachers, relatives, another human being who truly cares for your child. The main takeaway is that I invite you to think about, how is your child's reward buckets filled, and this will give you insight into what you might be able to add in. Often it's about finding ways to increase the human connections. If you have a lot of positive social interactions, it will go a very long way towards filling your child's bucket. So a few more notes about rewards. If you've ever tried to take away your child's gaming console before their mission was over, I don't need to tell you that losing a reward is stressful. It's just something to keep in mind if you will be limiting a rewarding activity. It can help if you replace it with another rewarding activity, such as time with you. That can help ease the transition. I'd like to talk about this concept called therapeutic dosing. I know that the last graphic showed big chunks of rewards, but what can be more helpful is thinking about small doses over time. 10 minutes where your child has your full attention can go a very long way. This will actually have a bigger impact than an hour where you're checking your work email while at the park. Think quality, not quantity necessarily. Small doses of rewarding interactions with you or another caring individual will have a cumulative power. We know that dysregulated children are not able to get the same gains from social interactions. Focus on calming strategies first. This may be a time to start with other forms of reward, like a snack or listening to music. Maybe you need your child to be on their iPad to get through your workday, and that's not within your control. But what could be? Connecting over dinner time, early morning walks with the dog. What are some rewarding activities that you have within your control? If you're struggling to find ways to increase rewarding activities in your child's day, then this is definitely something that we can help you with at Crossroads. So now we're going to be discussing the grief process. The Japanese have a form of artwork called kintsugi. It's the Japanese art of mending broken objects using gold or silver. The Japanese believe that when something has suffered damage, they become more beautiful. This is part of its history. Why is this important? This is a very common metaphor in grief therapy world. Sometimes before we bring in new ritual, it's important to grieve the losses. Allowing children to express their feelings around missed trips, canceled birthday parties, or even more serious losses, like illnesses, is very important. Simply listen to them, validate their feelings. We're all experiencing some measure of grief these days. It can be important to recognize that and give it some space. One last note on grief: everyone's losses are important. It's important not to compare our losses to others. One child may grieve a lost playdate, while another may grieve the death of a grandparent. They all deserve the space to be expressed. When grief has space, it makes it easier to bring forth new traditions and rituals. We're not looking back, but looking ahead at a future that we can get excited about. And although there are losses, some things remain the same, and it can be helpful to remind children of what those things are. My good friend Christy at Pleo, who you've heard from earlier, will say this to her son. Everything is different right now, but some things that you can count on. The sun comes up every morning, we love and care for each other, and your dad will always have uncontrollable gas. A dose of humor takes the edge off a tough conversation. It will help regulate both of you and put you in a better mindset to discuss thoughts and feelings. So that's all for today. Please join us in next week's presentation where we'll take a deeper dive into how stress affects the child's brain and how to calm a stressed child. Please join our watch party on September 9th at the same time on our Facebook page. So as we wrap up, we want to bring your attention to a relatively new service here in Ottawa. The service is called Counseling Connect, and it can be accessed through the website at counselingconnect.org. Counseling Connect provides free access to same-day or next-day phone or video counseling sessions. This service is for children, youth, adults, and families in the Ottawa and surrounding area. Families can actually access our services through Counseling Connect. There's no waiting list, no cost. And remember, you can also access supports through our weekly walk-in clinic. So if you'd like to reach us directly because you have concerns about your child's mental health, or maybe to explore some of the topics that we've discussed today, if you're requiring extra support to put some of these things in place, then I invite you to call our center at 613-723-1623. In closing, as an agency, Crossroads is fundraising for the very first time to ensure that we can meet the increased demand for our services. If you're able to, consider donating. Every dollar counts and a tax receipt will be provided. Our goal is to fundraise $80,000 by the end of September, which will allow us to support 600 additional children and families to get them the help they need, when they need it the most. You can go to canadahelps.org or visit our website and click on the Support Us tab at the top. All donation dollars go directly to supporting children's mental health in Ottawa. The interconnectedness of the world made us all more vulnerable to this infection, but it is that same interconnectedness that will help us heal and recover. We're all in this together. Thank you very much.